Majority of verified Gaza war fatalities, women and children. Ransomware threats endanger global health security. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Now, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's 4-day official visit to Egypt starting today is set to mark a significant milestone in the relations between Malaysia and Egypt. Now, Malaysia's ambassador to Egypt, Datuk Muhammad Tarid Sufyan, said the visit at the invitation of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi would pave the way for diversifying and strengthening cooperation, as well as reinforcing the foundations for synergy and addressing various regional and global issues of mutual interest. The Prime Minister is expected to arrive in Cairo at 6:30 p.m. local time. Now, according to Datuk Muhammad Tarid, a welcoming ceremony will be held at the Al-Ittihadiyah Palace tomorrow, followed by a bilateral meeting. The meeting is expected to focus on advancing bilateral relations through enhanced cooperation in the fields of trade and investment, defense and security, tourism, education and religious affairs.
Yang paling utama, perbincangan akan tertumpu kepada pertukaran pandangan dan membincangkan hala tuju bidang kerjasama berkepentingan bersama, iaitu dalam isu konflik di Palestin.
The United Nations has condemned the staggering number of civilians killed in Israel's war in Gaza, with women and children comprising nearly 70% of the thousands of fatalities it had managed to verify. In a fresh report, the United Nations Human Rights Office detailed a raft of violations of international law since the Israel-Hamas conflict escalated on 7th October last year. Demanding international efforts to prevent atrocity crimes and ensure accountability, the agency warned that many violations could amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possibly even genocide. The UN said operations by Israeli forces have caused unprecedented levels of killings, death, injury, starvation, illness, and disease. It pointed out to Israel's continuing unlawful failures to allow, facilitate, and ensure the entry of humanitarian aid, the destruction of civilian infrastructure, and repeated mass displacement. The report also tackled the contentious issue of the proportion of civilians among the nearly 43,500 people killed in Gaza so far. The Rights Office said it had managed to verify around 10,000 of the more than 34,500 people reportedly killed during the first 6 months of the war. 4,700 of the verified fatalities were children and 2,461 were women. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk called on all countries to work to halt the violations and to ensure accountability, including through universal jurisdiction. The United Nations peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon said that the Israeli military's deliberate and direct destruction of its property was a flagrant violation of international law. The 10,000-strong UN mission known as UNIFIL is stationed in southern Lebanon to monitor hostilities along the Blue Line separating Lebanon from Israel. Since Israel launched a ground campaign across the border against Hezbollah fighters at the end of September, UNIFIL has accused the Israeli military on several occasions of deliberately attacking its bases, including by shooting at peacekeepers and destroying watchtowers. UNIFIL yesterday said that 2 Israeli military excavators and 1 bulldozer had destroyed part of a fence and a concrete structure at a UN base in Ras Nakura a day earlier. Since 30th September, Israel has repeatedly demanded the UN peacekeepers vacate their internationally mandated premises so it can more freely advance its ground invasion of southern Lebanon. UNIFIL's deputy spokesperson Candice Arel said the peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon has been targeted 40 times since then. The United States aims to send a small number of contractors to Ukraine to help maintain advanced weapons such as the warplanes and air defense systems provided to Kyiv. Washington has been a key military backer of Ukraine, committing more than $60 billion in security aid since February 2022, but had not permitted defense contractors to work in the country after Russia launched its full-scale invasion. A U.S. defense official said the contractors will be located far from the front lines, and they will not be fighting Russian forces. They will help Ukrainian armed forces rapidly repair and maintain U.S.-provided equipment as needed so it can be quickly returned to the front lines. The official further said the measure was taken because some of the equipment the U.S. has provided Ukraine requires specific technical expertise to maintain. Washington has provided a wide range of military equipment to Ukraine, including air defense systems, artillery pieces, and munitions, as well as tanks and other vehicles. South Korea has fired a ballistic missile into the sea in a show of force after North Korea's recent salvo of missile launches. Now, the nuclear-armed North and test-fired what it said was its most advanced and powerful solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile, as well as a number of short-range ballistic missiles in separate drills over the last 2 weeks. South Korea's military command said its live-fire exercise was aimed at demonstrating its strong resolve to firmly respond to any North Korean provocation. It also underlined its capability and readiness for precision strikes against the enemy's origin of provocation. The military command said Hyunmoo surface-to-surface short-range missile was sent into the West Sea in the exercise. Hyunmoo are a series of missiles which are key to the country's so-called kill chain preemptive strike system, which allows Seoul to launch a preemptive attack if there are signs of imminent North Korean attack. South Korea started domestic production of short-range ballistic missiles in the 1970s to counter the threats posed by North Korea. Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong said he has yet to decide when the next general election will be held, now stating that the people will know once the process begins. He emphasized that he has all the time from now until the end of next year to decide. Wong also noted that the Electoral Boundaries Review Committee has not convened. The last few general elections were called between 1 to 3 months after the release of the committee report. The next general election must be called by November 2025. Meanwhile, Wong, who is also finance minister, said preparations for Budget 2025 have already begun, with pre-budget consultations set to start next month. He said the government is focusing on several broad themes, such as economic strategies, opportunities, skills upgrading, and jobs for workers, and strengthening the sense of solidarity and unity, especially as the country marks its 60th year of independence next year. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. had signed laws defining the country's sea waters and imposing fixed lanes for foreign ships. The Maritime Zones Act marks out waters that fall within Manila's territory, as well as areas outside of it to which it has maritime entitlements, as agreed by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. They include some waters contested by China, which claims most of the South China Sea, including areas close to the shores of the Philippines. A second law, the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, authorizes the president to impose fixed sea and air routes through which foreign ships or planes may pass without compromising the national security. The president said by defining and asserting the country's maritime zones, Philippines projects to the international community that it is committed to nurturing, cultivating, and protecting its maritime domain. More than 6,500 smuggled birds were seized from traffickers and released into the wild in Indonesia's Lampung province. Now, the birds were discovered at the back of a truck on October 15th at Bandar Bakau Jaya Port, crammed into plastic boxes. Authorities released the animals into the wild the next day. According to officials, an Indonesian man who was the truck driver was also arrested by the authorities under suspicion of illegal wildlife trafficking. The man said he did not know any details about the smuggling operation and thought the animals were common birds. According to the Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network Traffic, they were bound for Indonesia's bird markets in major cities. The organization also said that 257 protected species under Indonesian law were found in the seizure. Under the law, offenders can face up to 10 years jail and a fine for trafficking endangered animals. Despite these penalties, the trade is still widespread across parts of the Indonesian archipelago. Still ahead, global food prices reach 18-month high. Now, the World Health Organization and some 50 countries have issued a warning at the United Nations about the rise of ransomware attacks against hospitals.
I also invite His Excellency.
Ransomware is a type of digital blackmail in which hackers encrypt the data of victims and demand money as a ransom in order to restore it. Emphasizing the importance of international cooperation to combat them, WHO head Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said surveys have shown that attacks on the healthcare sector have increased in both scale and frequency. He noted that cybercrime, including ransomware, poses a serious threat to international security, calling on the Security Council to consider it as such.
Let's be clear at the outset that ransomware and other cyber attacks on hospitals and other health facilities are not just issues of security and confidentiality. They can be issues of life and death. At best, these attacks cause disruption and financial loss. At worst, they undermine trust in the health system on which people depend and even cause patient harm and death.
A joint statement co-signed by over 50 countries, including South Korea, France, and Germany, offered a similar warning. The statement said that the attacks pose direct threats to public safety and endanger human lives by delaying critical healthcare services, causing significant economic harm, and pose a threat to international peace and security.
If health facilities don't...
Global food prices rose in October to their highest level in 18 months, with a sharp increase in the cost of vegetable oil. The Food and Agriculture Organization Food Price Index, which tracks monthly changes in international prices of a basket of food commodities, reached 127.4 points last month, a 2% increase from September. It was the highest since April last year, but still 20.5% lower than the peak reached in March 2022, following Russia's invasion of agricultural powerhouse Ukraine. Vegetable oil prices increased by 7.3% in October, reaching a 2-year high due to lower production. Sugar prices rose 2.6%, dairy was up 2.5%, and cereals gained 0.8%. Meat was the only commodity to fall, down 0.3% from the previous month. The report was published by the Food and Agriculture Organization, an agency of the United Nations. A man was shot and killed on Friday afternoon at Sao Paulo's international airport, with local media reporting the murder was likely linked to organized crime. Sao Paulo State Security Secretary said the murder and its cause are still under investigation. Videos on social media show that the shooting took place in the arrival area of Terminal 2, but police did not confirm that information. Without giving any further details, police said 3 other people, a woman and 2 men, were wounded in the shooting, and the 2 men were taken to a nearby hospital. The public saw around 5 assailants exit a black vehicle and open fire at the victim. Later, the investigators found a vehicle matching that description that was abandoned near the airport, and they are determining if it was used in the attack. Thousands of supporters of Bangladeshi Nationalist Party, once the largest opposition party during former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's rule, rallied in the capital Dhaka, demanding Hasina's trial and the holding of general elections. Chanting slogans, the party's activists, along with allied groups, marched through the streets of Dhaka. Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal last month issued an arrest warrant for Hasina, citing her alleged involvement in mass killings during violent protests that erupted earlier this year. The protests, which began as a student-led movement against public sector job quotas, escalated into some of the deadliest unrest since the country's independence in 1971, resulting in over 700 deaths and numerous injuries. The violence ultimately forced Hasina to flee to India on 5th August, and an interim government led by Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus took charge. Next up in sports, Mitrovic scores as Al Hilal return to the top of Saudi Pro League. Al Hilal returned to the top of the Saudi Pro League, defeating Al Ettifaq for 3-1 to rake up the pressure under fire coach Steven Gerrard. Now, 3 fine goals from Alexander Mitrovic, Malcolm and Mohamed Al-Khatani did the damage as the champions moved a point clear of Al Ittihad, who won 2-0 at Al Khurubah on Thursday. Mitrovic opened the scoring late in the first half stoppage time with a smart left-footed finish. The second goal came in the 81st minute when Malcolm, who was running in from the left side of the area, was found by a smart back heel from Abdullah Al-Hamdan. Brazilian then took the ball past the goalkeeper with his first touch and then rolled the ball home. It seemed that there was no coming back from that, but as injury time started, Al Ettifaq were handed a lifeline in the shape of a penalty, and Vitinho stepped up to place the ball into the bottom corner. Unfortunately for the visitors, it served just a wake-up to the host, who quickly restored their 2-goal lead when Malcolm fed Mohamed Al-Khatani, who turned 360 degrees to make a little space in the area and then fired a low shot home. It got even worse for Al Ittifaq as Abdullah Radif was sent off for shoving Ali Al-Bulaihi in the neck, and there really was no coming back from that. Meanwhile, Al Nassr continued its form from midweek by beating Al Riyadh in 1-0 in a match at the Prince Faisal bin Fahd Stadium in Riyadh early this morning. Al Nassr came closest to taking the lead in the 36th minute when Talisca's header from a corner was saved by Milan Borjan before making another save to deny Cristiano Ronaldo from close range. The chance ended with Mohamed Simakan smashing the ball into the left post from the rebound. 5 minutes later, Sadio Mane found the breakthrough after precisely meeting Abdul Rahman Garib's pass from the right inside the box. Mane took a first-time shot with the ball going in off the crossbar. Al Riyadh came into the second half more intent to find a goal and almost would have got an equaliser in the 55th minute if it was not for centre-back Ali Lajami's quick thinking to nick the ball away from Mohamed Al-Akil, who was running onto a cross played into the box. Later, Ronaldo had a nice chance rejected by the Al Riyadh goalkeeper, who was subsequent rebound shot by Talisca disallowed because he was offside. After 10 matches, Al Nassr are third in the table with 22 points, 6 points off Saudi Pro League leaders Al Hilal on 28, with Al Ittihad currently in second on 27. In Bundesliga, Union Berlin goalkeeper Frederic Ronald saved a first-half penalty in a scoreless home draw against Freiburg in the German capital. The visitors won a penalty when Erin Denchi was brought down after 22 minutes. Freiburg captain Vincenzo Grifo stepped up to the spot but had his kick saved by Union goalie Renault. Freiburg have missed their past 5 penalties in the Bundesliga, matching a club record from 1999. Freiburg's Lukas Heuler had a late chance to steal the 3 points, but Diego Leche slid in to prevent the goal. The draw took Freiburg 1 point ahead of Bayer Leverkusen into 4th spot, while Union Berlin are 7th, just outside the European placings. The match was the first between the sides since the final match day of last season, when Union won at home to keep themselves in the top division in the same year they played in the Champions League. Tonight, league leaders Bayern Munich play at promoted St. Pauli, while defending champions Leverkusen travel to last place Bochum. American Coco Gauff defeated world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka 7-6, 6-3 in the semi-finals of the WTA Finals and will take on China's Zheng Qinwen in the showpiece match. Now, Sabalenka will end the year at the top of the world rankings, but her bid for a maiden WTA Finals title was ended by Gauff, who reached her first final at the end of season event. After trading early breaks, Sabalenka broke again to take a 6-5 lead to serve for the set, but Gauff responded, forcing a tiebreak which saw 8 breaks of serve over the 11 points. The American cruised to a 6-1 lead, breaking Sabalenka 4 times before the Belarusian broke twice to save the first 2 set points, but Gauff held her nerve to win the first set. Sabalenka cut a frustrated figure throughout the match, and Gauff raced into a 4-1 lead in the second set before the 6th game turned into a marathon affair. Gauff saved 7 break points, and at one stage, Sabalenka threw her racket into the air but eventually won the game to keep the contest alive. However, the American then broke to love to serve for the match. Sabalenka rallied and broke again, but Gauff kept her cool, and just when it seemed Sabalenka would claw her way back into the tie, the American broke for the 4th time in the second set. Coming up in our offbeat segment, robot artist makes history with sale at auction. A painting by a humanoid robot artist called Ida has made history by selling for $1.32 million at Sotheby's digital art sale, the first time a humanoid robot has had its work sold by a major auction house. The work, called AI God, is a 7-foot-tall impressionistic portrait depicting the father of modern computing, Alan Turing. It had been anticipated to fetch between $120,000 to $180,000.
My artwork is a portrait of Alan Turing, the brilliant British mathematician who laid the foundation for modern computing and artificial intelligence. The portrait has a fractured and layered quality, reflecting our current fragmented and multifaceted worlds.
The process involved Ida painting several small portraits of Alan Turing, which were then combined and scaled up onto a large canvas. Studio assistants then added a finish to the artwork by adding paint and texture. The final procedure involved Ida robot painting on top of the canvas to add new marks and textures. Ida Robot is the brainchild of Aidan Miller, who says the robot is intended to spark a conversation about how people interact with technology and artificial intelligence. Flaming tar barrels recently were carried through the streets of Ottery St. Mary. The tradition, believed to have its origins in the 1605 gunpowder plots, failed attempt to assassinate King James I of England, is celebrated yearly in the southwestern English town. Barrels are coated with tar in the run-up to the event before being set alight, hoisted onto participants known as barrelers' backs, and carried through the crowds. Local pubs in the area sponsor individual barrels, and only those either born in Ottery St. Mary or long-term residents of the town are allowed to carry them. Events for women and children took place earlier in the day until the evening culminated in the heaviest barrels of more than 30 kilograms being lifted by the strongest and most experienced carriers.
I've been doing tar barrels since I was like 10ish, so it's pretty easy now, but that was the smallest barrel, so I'm looking forward to the bigger ones. But the barrel gets set alight and you just pass it to each other running up and down.
From a life-size English queen to a Roman sea god, an international fair in Birmingham was drawing cake artists from around the world to showcase their multi-tiered talents. The 3-day decorating, sugar art and baking event was held earlier this week, where thousands of visitors who attended the event enjoyed lots of other creations, including a creation of Dog Pool, a canine character from the Deadpool and Wolverine hit movie. They were among hundreds of exhibits and competition entries as Cake International celebrated its 30th anniversary. There were also live demonstrations and trade stalls.
We've got pieces from all over the world. We've got artists that have travelled here from all over mainland Europe, from Ireland. We've had people ship pieces from Canada, from North America, even from Australia. So it really is an international mix.
Meanwhile, Emma Jane Morris, an artiste from South Wales, had previously created a life-sized version of King Charles in his coronation year. This time, she turned her attention to Queen Elizabeth I, inspired by a portrait at Hatfield House in Hertfordshire.
Actually, it's taken 4 weeks. It took me a week to make the head alone, and then 3 weeks to make the body.
A critically endangered Sumatran elephant has been born in Indonesia, another rare birth that has given renewed hope to conservation efforts. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Sumatran elephants are on the brink of extinction, with only about 2,400 to 2,800 left in the world. Local conservation agency head Gunman Suhefti Hasibuan said the female calf was born at the Pulau Cina Nature Tourism Park in Riau province on the western island of Sumatra. The unnamed calf was born to a 24-year-old female named Ngatini and a 25-year-old bull named Robin. The healthy and lively female calf weighs 104 kilograms. 2 more critically endangered Sumatran elephants were born late last year in Waikambas National Park on Sumatra Island. Indonesian officials hailed the births and said they showed conservation efforts were essential to prevent the protected species from extinction. The elephant population is threatened by rampant poaching for their tusks, which are prized in the illegal wildlife trade. Deforestation has also reduced the critically endangered elephants' natural habitat and brought them into increasing conflict with humans. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, majority of verified Gaza war fatalities, women and children. Now tune into Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Otto Othman. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.